All right, let's dive into this epic story of the 2008 Boston Celtics. I mean, this team, their journey, it's captivating, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a ton of material to unpack, like a treasure trove of history and stats about this legendary Big Three.
Oh, yeah, it's an amazing story.
We'll relive those incredible playoff runs, decode the whole Ubuntu thing, and of course, we'll witness Ray Allen just nailing those three-pointers. I mean, his accuracy was almost unreal.
It was something else.
And you mentioned you were really curious about Danny Ainge's moves, so we'll definitely break those down too.
Let's look forward to that.
But before we get to all the excitement of the 2008 season, let's set the stage. We need to rewind a bit and look at Boston before the Big Three era,
Right.
before all of that.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating is how the Celtics 2008 championship, it actually came after a period of real struggle. You know, you have this franchise steeped in history, tons of championships, but they were coming off some of their worst seasons ever.
Yeah, like, can you believe they only won 15 games in the 1996-97 season?
Hard to imagine, right?
That was the worst in their history. It must have felt like, I don't know, a total fall from grace for their fans.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about the pressure to turn things around. It wasn't just about winning games. It was about reclaiming their identity.
Well,
You know, you mentioned in your notes you've dealt with some similar high-pressure situations in your career.
oh, yeah, for sure. I can definitely relate to that weight of expectation. So we've got a team desperate for a comeback. And in the middle of it all, you've got Paul Pierce, this lone star, carrying the team. He was dedicated, no doubt, putting up big numbers. But, like, you can only do so much on your own. Did it feel like Pierce was going to be one of those what-if stories? A great player on a team that just couldn't win it all?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely that risk. Paul Pierce was incredibly talented. But even the best players, they need a strong supporting cast to really shine. The Celtics, they had to make a change, something big to shake things up.
Okay, so the Celtics are in a tough spot. Enter Danny Ainge, their general manager. And he pulls off not one, but two huge trades in the 2007 offseason. He brings in Ray Allen from Seattle and Kevin Garnett from Minnesota. Was he a genius or was he crazy?
Well, maybe a little of both. It was a huge gamble. I mean, it could have backfired big time. To get Garnett, he traded away 5 players and 2 future first-round draft picks. That was the most players ever traded for one player in NBA history at that time.
Wow, that's a lot to give up. He was all in on this Big Three idea. What was it about his approach, his view of the situation, that made him so confident in taking that risk?
Well, what's interesting is that Ainge didn't just throw a bunch of stars together and hope for the best. He saw something special in how Pierce, Allen, and Garnett could work together. They all had these unique skills. And Ainge believed their personalities, how they played, it would all mesh perfectly.
So that press conference, when they unveiled the Big Three, it must have been electric. The fans must have gone wild.
Oh, it was a huge moment. It showed everyone, like, hey, the Celtics are back. They're serious about winning a championship. And the fans were definitely excited.
I bet. After years of disappointment, they finally had a team they could believe in again. The whole city must have been buzzing. But let's be real. Having 3 superstars doesn't automatically equal success. The big question was, could they actually mesh as a team and live up to the hype?
Right, the pressure was on. Everyone was watching to see if these guys, all these big personalities, could put their egos aside and come together
Yeah.
as a unit.
And then, boom, they start the 2007-2008 season, and they just dominate. I mean, they finish with a crazy 66 wins. It was like, is this team for real?
It was historic. The best single-season turnaround in NBA history. They improved by, like, 42 games from the year before.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just about the wins. Their defense was like a wall. They held teams to some of the lowest scores we'd seen in years, like since the Michael Jordan era.
Exactly. They were dominating, period. And you can't talk about their success without talking about Ubuntu. That's the philosophy Coach Doc Rivers instilled in the team. You were really interested in that, right?
Yeah, Ubuntu. It sounds kind of mystical, almost. What was it about this philosophy that just clicked to this group of players?
Well, Ubuntu is an Nguni Bantu word. It means humanity, but it's more than just a word, you know? It's like a way of life, I guess. It emphasizes connection and achieving success together. Coach Rivers used it to build this sense of selflessness, of teamwork. He kept reminding them, I am because we are.
Okay, I get the concept. But how did it actually play out on the court? Were there, like, specific plays or strategies that embodied Ubuntu?
It was in everything they did, really. It was about finding the best shot, not just your own shot. They made the extra pass, trusted each other, and their defense was seamless. They moved as one.
So Ubuntu wasn't just a motto, it was baked into their game. It's amazing how something so, I don't know, intangible could have such a real impact. But we all know the regular season is just the warm-up. The playoffs are where legends are made.
Right. The playoffs, it's a whole different level. The intensity, the pressure, every possession matters. And the Celtics' playoff journey that year, it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, they had that first-round matchup against the Atlanta Hawks, went to 7 games, and they really struggled to win on the road. People started to wonder if they were really built for the playoffs.
It exposed some weaknesses for sure. Even with all that talent, it showed that playoff basketball is just different.
And then they faced LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, another 7-game series. Even though LeBron wasn't shooting great, he was still a force.
Absolutely. That series went down to the wire. The Celtics had to dig deep to beat him.
So they survived that grueling series against LeBron. What happens next in their championship quest?
Well, next up was the Eastern Conference Finals against the Detroit Pistons, a tough team with a lot of playoff experience. But this time, something clicked for the Celtics.
Did they finally figure out how to win on the road? I'm dying to know.
Yes, they finally broke through, won the series in 6 games, and got their first trip to the finals since 1987.
Can you imagine the relief and excitement in Boston? It must have felt like a huge weight off their shoulders.
It was a huge win, for sure. They had proved themselves, battled through tough times, and now they were one step away from the championship.
One step away from facing the Los Angeles Lakers. But that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive.
Ugh.
All right, so we're back. Last time we left off, the Celtics had just won the Eastern Conference title. It was their first trip to the NBA Finals in over 20 years. And now they were getting ready to face, the ultimate challenge, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, and this wasn't just any other finals matchup, right? This was like a clash of titans. The Celtics and the Lakers, these two historic teams battling it out. It was their 11th time meeting in the finals. Crazy.
I remember everyone was talking about this series. It felt like the whole world was watching to see who would win. Especially for Celtics fans, this must have been about more than just winning a championship. It was about proving they were better than their biggest rival.
Exactly. Beating the Lakers. That wouldn't just be a win, it would be a statement. It would be about reclaiming their legacy, showing they were the best.
And they did it. The Celtics beat the Lakers in 6 games. It was their 17th championship, and I bet Boston went crazy. Did you watch those games? What was it like seeing history being made?
Oh, man. Those finals were intense. The energy, the back and forth battles. It was everything you could want as a basketball fan. And game 1, that really set the tone. Kevin Garnett came out on fire. He was just dominating.
You mentioned you're a huge Paul Pierce fan. What was it like to see him lead the team to a championship, especially after everything he went through?
Seeing Pierce win that finals MVP, man, that was special. He was averaging over 21 points and 6 assists for the whole series. And he was playing through a knee injury, too. Most players wouldn't even be on the court with an injury like that.
And remember that moment in game 1 when he had to be wheeled off the court in a wheelchair? And then he came back? That was unbelievable. Talk about heart.
Oh, yeah. That was incredible. Like something you'd see in a movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of incredible, we got to talk about Ray Allen. He was on fire in those finals.
Ray Allen, the three-point king.
Seriously, he set an NBA Finals record in Game 2 with 8 three-pointers. His shooting was unreal.
But was it all just hot shooting? Or was there, a strategy behind his success?
It was a combination of both, for sure. Allen was an amazing shooter, no doubt. But the Celtics were really good at getting him open shots. They ran plays that took advantage of his movement, gave him space to catch the ball and shoot. They knew he was their biggest weapon.
Makes sense. It's cool how they could adapt their game plan to their players' strengths. But, championships aren't won by just the superstars. What about the other players, the guys who don't get all the attention but are still super important?
You're so right. Guys like Rajon Rondo, Kendrick Perkins, James Posey, Eddie House, and P.J. Brown, they were all key to the Celtics' success. Rondo, for example, it was only his 2nd season, but you could already see how good he was going to be. He was running the offense, making assists, playing tough defense. He even had 16 assists in Game 2 of the finals.
That's crazy. It seems like every championship team has those unsung heroes, the players who might not score the most points, but they make those winning plays that don't always show up in the stats. Were there any specific contributions that stood out to you?
Perkins, he was a beast in the paint, fighting for rebounds, protecting the basket. Posey and House, they gave them a scoring boost off the bench, hitting big shots when they needed them. And Brown, he brought that veteran leadership and tough defense. He was like a calming presence out there, especially when things got tense.
So it sounds like Coach Doc Rivers, he did an amazing job. bringing all these different players together, getting them to buy into a shared vision. You got to give them credit for creating that Ubuntu culture, right?
Definitely. Doc Rivers was a huge part of their success. He managed to handle the egos of three superstar players, built a sense of unity, and got them to believe in something bigger than themselves.
It's amazing how it all came together. The talent, the strategy, the leadership. It all led to that championship.
The 2008 Celtics, they weren't just a team. They were like a force of nature. They showed what can happen when you have teamwork, resilience, and that belief in something bigger than yourself.
But even the best teams have to face reality eventually, right? Dynasties don't last forever. Cracks start to appear. We'll talk about how the Big Three eventually broke up and their lasting legacy when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on the 2008 Boston Celtics. We've talked about their amazing championship run, their battles against some tough rivals, and that whole Ubuntu philosophy. But their story goes beyond just that one season. I mean, their impact on the NBA was huge, even on basketball itself.
It's funny, the 2008 Celtics, they really changed how people thought about building a team in the NBA. Back then, a lot of people were skeptical about bringing together a bunch of superstars. They thought it wouldn't work, too many big egos, everyone wanting to be the star. But the Celtics proved them wrong. When it's done right, a team with multiple stars can be unstoppable.
And it wasn't just about what they did on the court. We talked earlier about how LeBron James actually said the Celtics were the blueprint for the whole Superteam era in the NBA. So what were the key parts of that blueprint? Like, how was their approach different from what teams were doing before?
Well, before the 2008 Celtics, most teams tried to build through the draft. They'd get young players, develop them, and hope one or two would turn into stars. But Ainge and the Celtics, they flipped the script. They saw that the league was changing, that players had more power. They went after established stars, guys who had already won championships.
So they weren't just putting together a team, they were starting a trend, almost.
Exactly. They were ahead of their time. And their success, well, it kind of forced other teams to change their thinking. Everyone was trying to build their own super teams, like the Miami Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. And then, of course, the Golden State Warriors. They added Kevin Durant to Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. The Celtics really kicked off this whole era of player empowerment.
You keep using the term player empowerment.
Right.
What does that really mean? Like, what are the big changes it brought to the league?
It means players have more control over their careers now. They have a say in where they want to play, who they want to play with. It's about having a voice, having choices.
So the Celtics, with their Big Three move, they basically gave other players the confidence to take charge and demand more from their teams, from the league itself.
Exactly. Players realized they didn't have to wait around for a team to build around them. They could go out and find a team that was already good, a team that could win championships.
But some people say this super team thing has created problems, right? That it's harder for smaller teams to compete now.
Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. It's raised a lot of questions about whether all teams have a fair chance to win, but it's also created some amazing moments in NBA history. It's a complicated issue.
It sounds like the 2008 Celtics were more than just a great team. They changed the game, really. And their story goes beyond basketball, too. Their commitment to Ubuntu. It teaches us about leadership, teamwork, and never giving up on what you believe in.
Ubuntu is a powerful idea, that's for sure. And it goes way beyond sports. It's about realizing that we're all connected, that we need each other to succeed. It's about putting the team first, supporting each other, and working together.
Think about your own life, those times when you've had to work as part of a team, whether it's at work or with your family or in your community. Those same Ubuntu ideas can make a big difference.
Definitely. The 2008 Celtics proved that when you have talented people with a common goal and a willingness to work together, they can do amazing things.
So as we finish this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. How can you use those Ubuntu principles in your own life? How can you build a stronger sense of teamwork in whatever you're doing? The 2008 Celtics were a special team. They changed the NBA, and their story is still inspiring today. They remind us that great things can happen when we work together and believe in something bigger than ourselves. Thanks for joining us on this trip back in time. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into another fascinating topic.